In this video, I'm going to show you how I animated the wings on a dragon. So this video is going to be a little bit different in that it's not going to be as much of a tutorial as a show and tell. And specifically, I'm going to show you how I created this animation of my dragon sort of hovering and flying, and we'll be particularly looking at how I animated the wings. And I'm just going to run you through my thought process of how I got to this stage in animating the wings of this dragon. So I'm going to stop this animation and go back to where I started from. So here you can see I've got my actual dragon character. This is in the default pose, and these particular wings here are actually part of the dragon rig. You can see the actual skeleton is a quadruped skeleton, and I never made a special graphic for that, but it's got these extra bones on it that let me move the wings about. And see there, they don't really let me animate the wings properly. And see that actual wing there is split because originally this dragon wing only had this part, these two sections, and I wanted the wings to be bigger, so I just added on this extra section. And I really only included these as part of the rig for posing purposes and for very limited animation that didn't require too much work. And it's also got enough sprites so I can make the dragons fold its wings down into its body. So I just open up the timeline here. So I can see I've got this set up here. You can see if I move this, the wings will fold down into the dragon's body. I can animate it as much as that, and that's just done with sprite switching mostly. You'll see if I open up the sprite editor and we have a quick look at the wings in here. Down here we've got bone 1, which is the wings, and you can see it's got these different sprites that close the wing down there, and this obviously this top one just gets turned off as the wings go down. In terms of actually animating the dragon flying, these wings aren't any good. You can see that, as I showed you a minute ago, and this timeline off again, they really can only flap like that, and there's not much you can do in terms of deforming them. You can turn stretch bone on here and maybe grab them from this point, and that gives you some leeway to sort of adjust the length and width of them, but you can't do too much else. And the one thing that I really needed to be able to do was to flip the wings forward, as you'll see later on when I get more into this. I started looking at solutions that Cartoon Animator actually comes with, and you might immediately think of why not rig these up to a wing prop, and I did actually try that. This is a wing prop, and if you look at it without the actual sprites on it, I'll select that one, move this over here, and if I just turn these sprites off, see, that's a wing prop there. That's what they look like. They're just pretty much like a spine, but the bones are rigged in the opposite way. So you've got a center bone and then bones going out that way and bones going out that way. But the problem with this is that although these wings props come with their own pre-made motion clips, all of the clips are from the front view. So if you apply a motion clip, and I've applied an eagle flying clip to this because that's the sort of closest one to a dragon. You can see here, this is just this clip applied. You can see how it's distorting the wings, but more than anything else, it's a front view of the wings, which isn't a lot of good to me. And on top of that, if I tried to put this set of wings on my dragon, because it's an actor, I can't actually attach it. So I've got this problem of how do I attach that so that one wing is behind and one is in front, which I can't do using a single wing actor. So I did sort of go with the idea of using two of these and both going the same way, so it would look more like this. I just open up the sprites on that and get rid of this one. I'll turn that hip bone off as well. You can imagine that there. You can see maybe it would kind of work, but it doesn't really look like how a dragon would fly, because it's still really a front view of that wing, and it doesn't look, all of this looks pretty distorted using the standard clip. And see, that's actually how I rigged the wing, and then this is what it looks like after you've applied the motion clip. So I decided to abandon the winged actor prop, because the other thing I needed again was for it to flip, and although you can flip this by doing the flip hip thing here, and see now that's flipped over to the other side there. This was all pretty much a little bit too much, and I wanted to get rid of all this, and I thought, well, since I can't use motion clips anyway, I may as well do this with a spine actor. This is a spine actor. Now, spine actors is virtually like half a wing, because a winged actor has lots of these bones. It's got bone segments that way and then 6 bone segments that way, where this is just the hip bone is the base, and then you've got the bone segments up here. If we select this one, you can see this is the spine, and this is actually quite perfect because it's got that, the hip is at the very base of it, and then the rest of it you can just manipulate how you want. And the other reason why it's good is even on the transform track, or is already set up to rotate around the base of that object, which is perfect for a side wing. So this is my wing here that I've set up using the spine, and if we open up 2D Motion Editor for that, you can see this is how I've set this up. The reason why I've done it this way is because I found if I put these bones exactly on the ribs, when I distorted the wing, I would get some really awkward looking sharp bends on the actual ribbing, which looked like they were broken. Whereas if I put these bone points in between the ribs, I don't get any of the sharp bending. I still get some. You'll see if I manipulate these bones, you can see I do get some weird bends here and there, but I can fix them up sort of depending on how I adjust things, and it doesn't look too unnatural for the most part, as long as you don't bend too far. You can see this works relatively well, and I can do quite a lot with it. So then to animate this, I wanted it to have a more realistic looking flying motion than the actual other versions had, and I did a little bit of research to find a actual flying sequence. I was looking to see if anyone had done a flying sequence for a dragon, and there were a few out there, but I kind of came across this sequence for a bat flying cycle here. Just move this up so that you can see it. And this uses just 4 frames, and this actually shows you the timeline spacing for these particular frames that you should use. I didn't use this exactly because I had sort of issues of how I did it meant that this wasn't exactly possible, but I based my wing shapes on these, and all I did was started out with my wing in place, and if we just move this down a bit and sort of rotated it to look a bit like this one. And then this is just linked to the dragon using the link tool up here. So you just go link, and it's linked to this shoulder bone here. And then I could start just copying the various poses. So to get started on that, move this down here. Just trying to copy that pose there. So this is pretty much all I had to do, like that. Forward more and bring that up. And so if we wanted to squash it down a bit, instead of using the 2D motion key editor, I'd go into the FFD editor, this out a bit. So if I wanted to squash it down, I'd just select however many of these I needed to push it down a bit. We could move it down. And then on the next frame, I'd just go to the next one, and I went something like 2 frames ahead to start with. And then we just try and recreate this particular frame. So the way I could get started with that, just try moving this down, do things like stretch bones so that we can even push it right down. It's really just a sort of case of experimenting with things. If you're not getting what you want with that, you just go back to the FFD editor and maybe try squashing things down with that. They're starting to get that. Going from this one to that one, and the next one, this is where I needed it to flip, and that's where the whole flip hip comes in, because this one will actually flip from here because that's the actual hip. Because this one is such a dramatic move that goes really fast, I put it on the actual next frame, and go flip, and rotated the whole thing, and you can see the FFD is really messing that up. We then open up the FFD editor. Just go reset to get it back to where it was. And then we've just got to try and match that wing there. You can see that's pretty much how everything sort of works. So if we go from there, and then maybe just to do the last one, sort of match this one up. Might do something like that. And again, mess around with the FFD. Anyway, this is all trial and error, and it'll take me forever to sort of get this wing shape here. So what I'm going to do is go to my actual animation, and I'll show you the wing forms in the final one that I did. This is my bat flight cycle that I was using as my reference. You can see here I've got my open wing there, and then it's just starting to move down, and that wing is actually that version there, and then it goes straight from that into that, which is this other version there, that one. We move this up a bit just so you can see it, and bringing it back. You can see that one there is what I used for this version. You can see I'm only using these 4 frames, and for some of them there's a little bit of automatic tweening going on, where the cartoon animator does the in-betweens for the poses. When there's a real dramatic change, it just flips between there and the next frame. So this one, dramatic change, going straight back to that one. Then a few tweens, dramatic change, and so on and so on. The other things that I did for the dragon was the dragon body is just a dog sitting up loop. Originally these feet were sort of sitting on the ground, and I just pushed them down so that they're hanging as if the dragon's sort of hovering in the sky. You can see here, this is the actual loop here. It's called stand up, and it's just a loop for a dog sitting up. And as I showed you before, the wings are just linked to the back of the dragon using the link tool. And the second wing, all I did was duplicate the first wing's animation, moved it to behind the dragon, and then I offset it slightly so that both wings weren't operating perfectly aligned with each other, so it would look a bit more realistic, because not a machine wouldn't necessarily flap both wings at exactly the same time and exactly the same sort of mirror function of the other wing. So it looks more realistic if you slightly offset things. Then because the wings themselves are linked to the dragon, to make it float, I just use the motion pilot tool. So if I open up motion pilot, we'll go back to the start and open up motion pilot over here. I think I can turn the timeline off to demonstrate this. All I had to do was have this move function on, turn off face cursor so that it didn't actually flip the dragon while it was going. If I just do preview and hit the space button, you can see I can make the dragon fly around, and all the animation in the wings and the body and everything else is just moving exactly as I animated it. That's all I did to get that sort of floating function. While I can't save the whole dragon as is as a multi-prop, because like each wing is an actor in its own right and you can't save multiple actors to a file, I can save the actual wings and the animations for those wings into the action menu, which is what I did. I've got the actual flapping motion in here as a loop that I can just apply. So I can use this set of wings and do all kinds of animations in them and store them in its action menu and reuse them whenever I want. So that's the other benefit of using an actor file. So I hope you found this little show and tell interesting, and that you perhaps learned an approach for how to do something like this and how you can sort of explore the different tools and features of Cartoon Animator to sort of overcome any animation challenges you have. As you can see, that was done entirely with deforms and transforms. No drawing done at all. It's just one sprite for the wing, and everything else is done in Cartoon Animator. So I hope you found that interesting, seeing my behind the scenes approach for how I solved getting my dragon to fly. Hopefully you got a few ideas from it and got some idea of how my process actually works. Even though this wasn't a straight tutorial, hopefully you got enough out of it to be able to do something similar yourselves. So I'm going to leave that there and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.